Meeting to order. I believe that,
Try it again.
maybe that's better. Let's see.
I was last time.
You did last time.
My turn?
Your turn.
Okay.
Commissioner Baker will have our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray, please.
You want to stand?
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and your blessings and your guidance. We ask, Father, that you would lead us as we make the directions and decisions tonight. And we just praise your holy name. In Christ's name, amen. Let us stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Roll call.
Commissioner Baker,
Present.
Commissioner Garver,
Here.
Commissioner White,
Here.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Here.
Mayor Lamb.
Here.
There we go. I think that'll be better.
You had in your packet the minutes from our June 21 commission meeting. Any corrections on those? Any additions?
Move to approve.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yay.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. You also had the June 26 workshop minutes. Any addition, changes in those that need to be done?
Move to approve.
I wasn't here that day, so.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yay.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Now's the time we have set aside for comments from our citizens. This particular time is set aside for those that wish to speak, other than for those that want to speak in the public hearing. We will have a public hearing for you to speak for the ordinances that we have on tonight. So the microphone and floor is open. Just give us your name and your address. Seeing none, we'll go on with our agenda. Our first item under unfinished business is the second reading, and I need to go into a public hearing. I'm going to close the commission and open the public hearing. And we now have a public hearing on Ordinance 1097. Would you read the caption, please?
An ordinance to amend the official zoning map to rezone property on Watkins Street from R2, low-density, single and two-family, to MUBC, mixed-use business center, with conditions herein described as Hamilton County Tax Parcel 132PH027, said area being located within the corporate limits of the city of Collegedale, Tennessee.
Is there anyone here that wishes to speak in regard to this particular ordinance, rezoning of Watkins Street property? Seeing none, we'll move on to the public hearing for Ordinance 1098. Would you read that caption, please?
An ordinance to amend the official zoning map to rezone property on Appleton Pike from AG agricultural to R2 low-density single and two-family, with conditions included herein described as Hamilton County Tax Parcel 151EA002, said area being located within the corporate limits of the city of Collegedale, Tennessee.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak for this ordinance? Concerning this ordinance? Okay, just approach the microphone and give us your name and your address.
My name is Dennis Schreiner. I live at 5006 Silver Lane.
And I guess our property is most affected by this duplex, the rezoning, which will result in the duplex. First, I'd like to thank the commissioners that have come out and walked the property. I know you don't have to do that. Commissioner Baker, Garver, Commissioner White. We actually, Wayne has been out there, Wayne Hines, the city manager. We've also talked at length with Kelly Martin, Kirsten Ert, I believe it is. Make sure I get that right. And we actually did meet this morning in Wayne's office with Mr. Kim to kind of get a better idea of what he has in mind, how this is going to play out. So we could express our concerns with the runoff and how the water drains. And, we already have issues in the back with a ditch that overflows quite often. So that was our concern. And we had a very amicable meeting. There was no throwing of fists or yelling or anything. So it is not a personal vendetta against Mr. Kim. For him, this is a business deal. And for us, it boils down to, other than aesthetics, would be, what does it do to the value of our property? Having a duplex right basically at our back lot line. So we did discuss many ideas and issues, and Wayne and Kelly and Kirsten were very helpful. We've kind of come to some agreements on, what Mr. Kim is willing to do and not do. And we realize there are some things that the city can't rule on. So we have to kind of go by what his reputation, and hopefully he will stick to his word. It does affect us greatly. And, we have been affected tremendously recently by other things going on across the street. So it's all hitting us at once. I still am opposed to the duplex going in there. I do not think it's a good place for the duplex up behind the other house, looking down on our house and down on his existing property there. I know probably to the letter of law, everything has been met. Doesn't mean it always has to be done. And I'm concerned for the direction that the city is going. 28 years ago, I built that house, and people would ask me, and I was in the business, where are you building? I said, Silver Lane. And people would say, man, you're lucky to be on Silver Lane. Now I'm running into those people, and they're saying, are you still living on Silver Lane? And I'm like, same spot. And they're like, I feel sorry for you, and it's not just Mr. Kim, it's what else has happened. So right now we're inundated with dust and dirt and noise, and that's probably not going to change. So, once again, we are opposed to it. I think most of the neighbors are opposed to having a duplex right behind us. And I know there's precedent set on other roads, but we just ask you to consider or reconsider and think about the direction that we're going. The statistics that we could pull up says about 52% of Collegedale is now rental, 48% is single family homes. And we just see it going down that direction further and further and further. So once again, thank you for your time, for being willing to come out and walk the property. It means a lot to us to still live in a place where we have commissioners and managers and planners that are at least willing to talk about it and take a look at it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Your Honor, Madam Mayor and Vice Mayor and fellow commissioners. I want to register my.
You want to give us your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry. I want to introduce myself. I figured you all knew me.
Former mayor.
Preston Jones, and I'm a resident of 5030 Silver Lane. I've been there about 47 years. I built the house there. In fact, I was the third house on that street. And I have witnessed the building of that subdivision. Now we have 34 nice single-family residences, of which we're very proud of. And we're opposing this ordinance. I think Mr. Lee, I'm not personally opposed to duplex housing if they're in the proper location. I know we have several in the city, but I am opposed to this one being where it is, the location, number one. The reason, Mr. Lee, I don't think he's building it to move there and live there. He's has an income motive, and I understand that. It's going to be a rental property, and my understanding is it's going to be quite larger than a normal, what I call a multifamily duplex. I believe that he's planning on a 6-bedroom facility, which that would probably take at least 4 bathrooms to service that size home. And with that many potential people living with a septic system that we have in that area, I can assure you that it's not going to work. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's a matter of when it's going to happen. A septic system will not accommodate that many people, potential people. And let me explain that. He could be renting it to 2 people, maybe 8. I mean, 2 families, maybe 8 people. But he also could rent it to 3 couples. I mean, 6 couples, not 6 couples. Yeah, he could rent it to 6 couples with 6 bedrooms. Couples meaning maybe college students, that's similar to that, which would be a potential of 12 people living there. And that many people using the system, I think all of you understand that's not going to work. And Mr. Schreier mentioned the drainage problem. He will have, and I can attest to this, he will have groundwater drainage problems because of the way the lot is shaped in a point, triangular point, which it looks to me like that building, that size building, there's already a building on the frontage down by Epsom Pike. And this large duplex is going to probably have to be built perpendicular to Appleton Pike. I'm just thinking that because of the shape of the property going back to a point. And all of this drainage from even up where my property is going to come right down through there once land starts being prepared and broken. So there's going to be a surface drainage problem. But the problem that worries me most is the sewage problem. That's a health problem that we need to give serious thoughts to. And in my day, when I was growing up, every family usually had 1 automobile. I know that's all we had. It was 4 of us. We had 1 automobile. Nowadays, everybody of age has to have an automobile. That seems to be the case anyway. So when you think of the potential number of people that could be in there, you could have 8 to 10 to 12 vehicles parking back up in there around that complex. That's going to be a sore eye and a problem. So I want you to think of that. The other thing that I would mention is that on June 14, the City Planning Commission met, and of course, Your Honor and one of the commissioners are voting members of that commission. I was present, and your Planning Commission discussed this issue quite lengthy, I thought, and came to the conclusion that they voted not to recommend this, to you for approval. So I'm respectfully requesting that this commission accept the decision of your planning commission and vote to not approve the ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments?
That's why I came to us.
Hello, my name is Philip Kim. I'm at 10819 Appleton Pike, the subject property that's being subdivided. So first of all, Hamilton County groundwater is incredibly strict. There are many, many pieces of property that I've looked at that they would not approve a septic system. And nowadays, unlike Silver Lane that's having a lot of problems, it was built 30, 40, 50 years ago, 20 years ago. Nowadays, what they do is they require a redundant system. So something like, I want to say about 50% of an acre and a quarter lot is designated for septic. The actual hard surface that's being placed on that property is less than 8%. The property is about almost 60,000 square feet, 58,000, and the footprint is about 2,800 to 3,000, including some parking spaces that might be another, certainly less than 10%. Where it's sitting, majority of the foliage will stay, not for any other reason except it's just, there's no need to cut down trees that are healthy. It's very expensive to remove trees. I'm not trying to unnecessarily have expenses and bother my neighbors. So as far as runoff, I have a level 1 erosion control certificate, and as far as I can see, there is so much ground cover there that's not being disturbed that a 3,000 square foot coverage of hard surface just won't do anything. And then the other part is the septic tank, the septic system and the leach fields are on the lower end on the Bestmore side. So it would not affect Silver Lane one bit. So, we have to kind of have faith in our planners and our engineers that we've hired. I don't believe, as a developer, I'd be happy if they were more lenient. They're not. It's very expensive for me to get soil engineers, groundwater surveyors to just get this lot split. Nobody will do a favor for a guy just trying to split one lot to put their license up to have a failed septic system. It's just not done anymore. And if one septic system did fail, there's a redundant area for it to go to. So I don't believe, I understand the concerns of my neighbors. I do believe, if I can speculate, that they're so frustrated with all the things that are going around. I'm a little guy they can vent on, and I'm okay with that. But unless somebody can actually give me cite laws and ordinances that prevent me from doing this, and if they can prove that the engineers I've hired were flawed in their engineering discoveries, and that Hamilton groundwater was erroneous in their assessment, I'm requesting that my rights be protected and upheld. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing and go back to the commission meeting. Okay, the first item would be the second reading of Ordinance 1097. Would you remind us of that title again, please?
An ordinance to amend the official zoning map to rezone property on Watkins Street from R2 Low Density Single and Two Family to MUBC Mixed Use Business Center with conditions herein described as Hamilton County Tax Parcel 132PH027, said area being located within the corporate limits of the city of Collegedale, Tennessee.
Okay. Any comments or questions in regard to this ordinance?
May I ask a question?
Mhm.
Is this the land that we're talking about, mini storage? I know it's beside Surf Pro, the land there's for a road, or what are they wanting to,
They're going to build a home there.
a home there?
It's the daughter of the individuals that own that, the large property around.
Okay.
Wait, Mayor, you're talking about the Wittenberg property. This is
Correct.
not the
Oh, I'm
Wittenberg.
sorry.
This is
I'm
Watkins
thinking
by
about
Surf
what we
Pro.
did last time. This is that triangle, by the church.
Yeah.
There's a church, green
There's a lot
area
back
there
there,
by the
so-
railroad, and between the railroad and the church is sort of like a little triangle area,
Yeah, is that
and
going
it faces on Watkins Street.
okay. I know where the land is. What they're putting there, is it going to be business, or is it going to be like road, or what are they looking for? Is that the mini
Kelly,
storage?
you have an answer to that for us?
The applicant is here. I suggest that you ask the applicant more specifics, but it will accommodate a variety of uses, including commercial, office, and contractor storage, which is allowed under an MUBC and mixed-use business center. But the applicant can answer more specific use questions.
You mind explaining it to me, please?
Come up and give us your name and your address. I apologize, Commissioner Baker, I was thinking about the one that we did last week.
Yeah.
Yes, my name is Joe Adams, and I'm basically going to use the space for rental property to upcoming businesses in the area, like the Whistle Stop is doing. Right now, I don't have any tenants that have signed up yet, but I'm building speculative right now.
Okay, so is that similar to what's been on,
On Jack Cade, yeah.
Road, yeah,
I'm going to
that-
do something similar
Okay.
that's on Jack Cade.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for ordinance 1097. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes,
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Okay, our next item is the second reading of ordinance 1098. Would you refresh our memory of that one, please?
An ordinance to amend the official zoning map to rezone property on Appleton Pike from AG agricultural to R2 low density single and two family with conditions included herein described as Hamilton County Tax Parcel 151EA002, said area being located within the corporate limits of the city of Collegedale, Tennessee.
Okay, any comments, questions in regard to this ordinance?
I'd like to hear from Kelly.
I do have a recommendation based on the conversations that have been taking place between the applicant and staff. And one is the condition that was placed on the property or suggested to be placed on the property by the Planning Commission, even though this was ultimately the recommendation came not to approve the what you're looking at. But the condition in section 3, a minimum of 25-foot undisturbed vegetative buffer shall remain. I would recommend that a smaller buffer be imposed and a minimum of 10 feet of undisturbed vegetative buffer shall remain, plus additional evergreen plantings as needed to replace any that are disturbed by the any construction activities. It's my understanding that the area for the redundant septic field line area will not be disturbed if and until it is ever needed, which may or may not ever take place, but that will be undisturbed and will remain in its current state. But to avoid having a very narrow, window or envelope for the applicant to maneuver, given the site conditions, I would recommend a minimum of 10 and then replace with evergreens as needed to replace what has to be taken out, but maintain a 10-foot undisturbed vegetative buffer at a minimum, knowing that will probably be more in some areas, less in others. So that will keep us out of a box, because this becomes law. This changes the ordinance, and if it has a condition and that can't be met in the field, we'll have to do this all over again. And I don't recommend that process when it's unnecessary at this point.
On what portion? I mean, tell me where that buffer is
This
going to
would be
be.
on the western portion that abuts the
Between them and the Shriners and so forth?
correct, on the lot 2. And so this would be from that point up the hill until you reach that point where that's undisturbed, naturally because of the redundancy. So it would be along that western property boundary until the end of lot 2, where the lot 2 would be abutting the adjoining properties to the west.
And our regular inspectors would actually enforce that if it was go to 10 feet?
Yes, that would be a condition of receiving a certificate of occupancy or CO. So the building department, that would be one of the checklist items. And because, like I said, this is in effect law, you're changing the law and adding this to the zoning it's as a condition. So it would have to be met for a CO to be issued.
And we did similar thing to Integra Apartments up here, correct? There was a buffer zone that we
Correct.
put in.
And also the preceding zoning case on Watkins Street has a condition with and it's not a vegetative buffer, not an existing buffer, but it will be one that's added. So yes, it's a condition that will be on the checklist for a certificate of occupancy.
And have you talked to Mr. Kim about this as well? And what's his input?
Yes, that was one of our discussions that we had today with Mr. Kim and the Shriners. So, and to better depict that. And so he was more comfortable with that. And, it would be easy to say a larger buffer, but it's going to vary as the construction will take place up there. And then it will be added back what is taken out that's, in addition to that 10 feet.
So answer me this, our city attorney's not here. So basically he has met the legality of the law in what he's trying to do, asking for zoning change. Is that correct?
Yeah, he has the planning commission or the staff recommendation of the planning commission noted that it was an extension of an existing zone, that properties were rezoned to R2 for duplexes in 1993. So essentially that set the precedent, just like the zoning across the street for the industrial was rezoned in 1987. So that precedent was set some time ago. And so from staff, we don't see that it would be reasonable to reject this. However, cities do have the leeway to add additional conditions, such as the one we're discussing, to mitigate that impact on surrounding properties. So we do think it's a reasonable request with that additional condition.
So I hate to put you on the spot again, but if we voted no, then Mr. Kim could take this to
Chancery Court would be
and probably win at this perspective. I'm just curious.
Right. I mean, that is actually, it would be conjecture for me standing right here. Courts don't like to interfere with local zoning decisions. However, if it's a clear case of an arbitrary or capricious decision, that would lend itself to supporting the developer's complaint.
So with the water runoff that we heard about, in your professional opinion, is that an issue for Mr. Kim?
Mr. Kim will have to convey that water like all property owners do. That water is obviously coming from somewhere, and it runs along the boundary of Mr. Kim's property and then the adjoining properties. All good water flows downhill according to the laws of gravity. So, that is going to have to be conveyed by Mr. Kim, just like the existing property owners do. That's the requirement. So I believe that the majority of the water, and I'm not the engineer who studied this, but looking at the topographical features, the bulk of the water appears to would be shunted on the opposite side of the property from this area. So I can't say that with certainty because I haven't surveyed the site as an engineer, but topographically speaking,
But
it
it's
will
got
have
to
to
go
be,
someplace.
this will have to be handled, yes.
Okay.
Hamilton County does have
I got, go ahead. I want to ask some
Go ahead.
requirements for groundwater. Yes.
I've, don't run off, but I've got one question for Mr. Kim. Have you made any, that's okay. Have you made any concessions at all based on what you've heard people in the community around you say? Have you made any changes on your plans or done anything differently to try to help them with some of the issues that they have?
Yes, I know, well, I only met with the Shriners today.
Well, I know you met with them, but I mean, have you changed, what have you changed on your plans
Well,
to accommodate their
Right.
frustrations, I guess is the best way to say it?
Well, the first issue was that they were afraid that septics would fail. So
Okay.
it's just not an issue. So that was.
Not yet. Right. I understand.
So that was already.
Mhm.
And then we talked about runoff and topographically, water doesn't go uphill, swim through forest and wood, and then go on and jump into a property. So physics would protect them from having runoff on my property. They asked for a buffer, and so we both had an agreement that we would keep a 10-foot buffer, and they would try to keep a 10-foot buffer out there if they could. There are some challenges to their ravine where their creek is, and so I'm not requiring that, but I had agreed with them that collectively we would get a 20-foot buffer, 10 on my side, 10 on their side, but that would be up to them as far as completing the 20-foot buffer.
Okay. I do like the 25-foot recommendation that the planning commission made, and I do understand the challenge of that. Because most of the vegetation back there are very tall, big trees, and I don't see, if he doesn't have to replant, I don't see him needing to do anything because they're just these great big trees he's not going to take down, and so you'll be able to see right through them. There's no vegetation present, and I think that would be something that would help possibly, because I understand the 25-foot challenge. I understand that, but.
And
Anyway.
we do have a landscape ordinance which would not apply here because both are considered low-density residential uses. So without a condition, there would be no landscaping required as a buffer. So this was, a 10-foot buffer plus additional evergreen plantings. That was the compromise versus a hard 25-foot buffer that doesn't vary from one end of the property to the other, because that doesn't take into account slope, construction needs, field conditions, and would paint all parties into a corner. So that's where that was the genesis of the compromise with 10 feet plus additional evergreen to provide additional ground level and then growth from there.
So when you say the 10-foot, that's currently what's there would not be disturbed, a 10-foot buffer zone, correct?
A minimum of 10 feet, and it may be more preserved depending on the field conditions at that point. And that's hard to quantify, in a nice, neat number. So yes.
And then the evergreen replacement, more about that. Describe where that would go and what does that look like?
The evergreen replacements would be primarily also along that western edge right there. If that boundary, approached that 10 feet, that's where those would be in to provide additional buffering, vegetative buffer. Let's keep that in mind, because a fence is also a buffer, but we're talking vegetative buffers. So that's where those would be planted to basically soften and provide a buffer between the structure itself and the adjoining property owners, plus the 10 feet that would remain, the minimum of 10 feet that would remain, and then the adjoining property owners' vegetation that's existing on their property.
Does this, by changing that from 25 to 10, does that mean that he can build his duplex closer to the line?
He would still be bound by the setbacks, so he would not be able to get closer than that 10 feet in any location.
But if we left the 25, you would have to stay 25 feet away?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. And that therein, like that condition at that point would be, in my opinion, that would be an unacceptable condition because it's so far and above what the zoning setback is, as it currently is. So if that's the case, if you have so many conditions of that, then you need to look at your zoning ordinance itself. And in this case, I think requiring him to set back so far would not be sustainable. It does damage to the ordinance itself.
And for R2 low density, what's the setback? Is it 10?
So we have 10 feet on the side setbacks.
Yeah.
And then that's the one in play. The others, the front and rear setbacks would not be challenged. I mean, they would not be imposed or even close. So it just would be that side setback with the 10 feet. So the 10 feet is going to fill in that setback that the structure would have to abide by.
So the duplex has to meet our building design standards, correct?
It does not.
It does
That
not?
only applies
Is
to
that commercial?
multifamily, commercial and multifamily, which would be greater than 3 units, condo, or, typical other larger apartment, more than those 3 units, and then the commercial.
Yeah, duplex is considered single family resident or residential still, not commercial.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's low density. It's defined as low density by most standards that you'll find are practically all. So that's why it would not apply to that. And that's under state law. State law specifies that it's multifamily, which generally is going to be over 3 units.
Any other comments or questions?
So Kelly, quick question for you. What are the top 2 or 3 things why the Planning Commission denied this?
I believe, in my opinion, that there was a lot of confusion regarding the drainage on the property and septic on the property. It was also discussed, could this be zoned R1L or remain as is and then divided into lots for single family residences instead of duplexes. That's entirely possible, but the impact on the land will be far greater than one duplex because you'll have to have that whole area. That the setbacks would be doubled because of you're doubling what you would be required because you have 2 structures. Septic would be the same way. So this is actually less obtrusive than two single family homes. And Hamilton County Groundwater Protection, they do approve by a number of bedrooms. And so essentially it's 6 bedrooms would be allowed. And that is, in this case, 3 in each unit, up to 3 in each unit. So that's how it's kind of clearing any confusion on that. That's what Hamilton County Groundwater has approved based on the percolation on this property. And the primary disposal area, as Mr. Kim did say, is primarily on the Bestmore side of the property. It's accessed from Appison Pike as well and not through Silver Lane, which was another factor that I failed to mention earlier, but staff did examine that in presenting this to the Planning Commission, that it would be a different conversation at Planning Commission and here tonight if it accessed Silver Lane.
May I ask a question too? Because it came up in the discussion concerning possibly 12 individuals living there, I think maybe they're referring to a little bit, and I may be wrong here, maybe a frat house because it's got 3 bedrooms in each. They could rent out a room to a couple or whatever. Maximum is going to be 12 people because I'm thinking if you have a parent and 2 parents, and a lot of people have 4 children. So that would accommodate in a 3-bedroom home if you have 2 girls in one room and 2 boys in another room. I'm just saying in speculation. So actually the impact, as to me, is going to be, no matter if they're large or small, a total of 12 could be just 2 families, right?
Or if it were 2 individual single family homes, the impact would be similar to what you're saying. If everything were maxed out as far as occupancy.
Yeah.
And being rental property, this is in Mr. Kim's endeavor, and I am not going to speak to the way he, would decide, would take applications and that sort of thing. But
right. And I think also with the parking, we have because we've run into this before in the past, where we've had people parking on the streets and so forth. We have ordinances and laws to kind of protect about that. So when we're thinking of a home, usually you're thinking, yes, there's 2 cars. We allow for like 2 cars. If they have a teenager, they may have another car, whatever. But it has to be within the framework, is what I'm trying to say, like they don't block traffic and things like that. Because what's parked on the property would be what would be allowed for that property.
Right, in the parking area, whether it would have to be accommodated through a garage or a parking pad driveway,
Yeah.
just like a single family home would or any other duplex would, correct?
Yeah, okay.
And if parking is an issue, you're right, that is handled through other ordinances. And I think a lot of things are at play here, a lot of concerns when you have a development, a new development like this, considering the development across the street and then the road widening. I completely understand concerns of what's next. And the zoning ordinance itself, the zone is fairly simple, but it does lead to these other questions. So, which are handled by other ordinances. Correct.
Okay. So,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So in summarizing, the engineering has been met with am I correct? The septic issues have been addressed appropriately and by experts and from parking and that sort of thing. The lot size, the barriers, and my understanding is because I spoke with Mr. Kim and Mr. Schreiner and them, he wants to keep the trees. Like he said, it's not feasible for him to tear them down because they are expensive to replace, but put in evergreens. I think that was one of the foliage or plants that was recommended by, when I was out talking with the owners, Mr. and Ms. Ryder, and I suggested that because I didn't know what foliage would be able to go out there. That was a possibility. So I think he is working. Mr. Kim has made some concessions. It may not be the concessions that everybody wants, but I think he's trying to be a good neighbor. But I think that the situation is, to me, the major issue is across the street on the other side of Apson with all the building and all that. And I was going to ask Mr. Hines, because when we were out there the other day, we talked about possibly with that drainage, the water was down at the end, and we know that TDOT is supposed to come in and do the drainage. They have to do that. But there was a blockage, and you were going to make a call to someone to rectify that. Were you able to reach anyone to help?
I didn't reach them. I'll follow up again.
Okay, I'd appreciate that so that we can, they need to fix that.
Yeah.
So I don't see, I understand everything, but I don't see at this time, everything has been met and has been addressed appropriately, why they should not be awarded the right for the change, for the zoning. Based on everything that's been brought to light.
So my question that I was going to follow up with, if Bessemer had not been rezoned to R2 in the 90s, where would we be standing today?
I would suspect this case could still very much be in front of you, but with a caveat about spot zoning. That door was opened in 1993. So at this point in time, I would not professionally consider this a spot zoning. It's an extension of an existing zone based on a decision made in 1993. If that were the case, staff would recommend to deny that because of setting that precedent. Staff, and then it would be, once you do that, it's difficult to deny the next one because you have set that precedent through your own action, and it's difficult to reverse that. So that would be probably where we would be right now having that discussion.
And it would also be a different situation if this was accessed through Silver Lane, because if it was part of the deed or the build out of Silver Lane, then the covenants and restrictions of that subdivision at the time would dictate what could or could not be used on this land.
And right, deed restrictions are privately enforced in between property owners. If there's a dispute, it's a civil matter. If it is a zoning matter, then obviously that purview is with the city. And the fact that it does not access Silver Lane is a definite plus. That would be a concern that we would have had as staff in reviewing this and reviewing all of the points that we do review. That's one that we did that's a box we could check. It does not access Silver Lane. That changes the conversation.
And as Mr. Kim pointed out at the end of his comments, it is his right to do with his property what he would like to do with his property, as long as it meets our standards and our requirements set forth that are legally enforceable and not arbitrary. Would that be your opinion?
My opinion is when you purchase a piece of property and it's zoned one thing, you have that vested right. But you also have the right to seek other uses, not guaranteed, but the right to seek other uses. And by, like I said, the city's past actions, it makes denying that request much more problematic for me professionally.
And then do we have any control over Hamilton County wastewater or any kind of influence?
Groundwater.
Or groundwater, sorry.
No, they are actually it's essentially, without getting into the details, they function really as an extension of the state oversight. So that's our local oversight. And as I believe Mr. Kim did mention, we've discussed this, that standards are much more stringent today as opposed to 20, 30, 40 years ago. And in fact, that's what allowed us a while back to lower the minimum lot size in every zone but A1 and to 25,000 square feet, unless Hamilton County groundwater requires additional area for percolation or for subsurface disposal. So because of that, because the standards are more stringent now than they were, that's why we lowered our own standards to accommodate more growth when it's the health department, or in this case, groundwater protection, actually deems it acceptable. So yes, it's a lot more stringent today than it was previously. So I think that's it's an independent review. It's not something that the city performs. So I think that arm's length distance is the way things should be, and that's what's operating now.
Is the driveway going to be a regular width, or it's going to be?
It would have to meet the driveway standards, and it would use the existing curb cut driveway on Appleton Pike, and the driveway width in this case would be
12 feet.
Is that what Mr. Kim is planning on building, 12 feet wide? Minimum. Okay.
And those are standards outside of the zone, R2 zone itself. So that's what I think that kind of also falls into. There are other ordinances and regulations, both local and county and state, that apply to this property. The zone itself, back to that, all these pieces will come together. But the zone itself, that was how staff arrived at our opinion that precedent-setting actions in its extension of an existing zone and use, it is being used as duplexes. The existing zone is AG, agricultural. And just as a reminder, Tennessee is very friendly to agricultural uses, which silviculture is one of those, and tree cutting. So unless there's a deed restriction that is enforced in court, the agricultural zoning is actually quite permissive. It just doesn't require a slightly larger lot size for this type of use, but otherwise it's a very permissive use as far as agricultural uses go.
Okay, anyone else have any information they need? Questions they want to ask? Do I hear a motion? And a second?
I make a motion that we accept with the provisions that Mr. Martin has given us with these conditions that he's explained.
With the 10-foot?
Yeah.
Minimum of 10 feet
Yeah,
plus,
what your recommendations are.
right, with the evergreen
Plus the evergreen?
added,
Yeah.
with evergreens added as necessary.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay,
any further discussion?
Yeah, I got one comment. I'd just like to thank the parties involved in this for their approach to working through this process. Frustrating as it has been, I think it demonstrates the community coming together to try to accomplish a goal and a mission of some long-term residents. So I want to say thank you to
Yeah, I would
that.
I would echo Commissioner Garver's. I met with the Shriners and they were very, as hard as this is for them, they were very gracious with Commissioner Baker and Wayne and I out there. And I know there's a lot of heartburn as we continue to grow and whatnot. But my opinion or the way I will vote is based off of protecting the individual property rights that's set forth by law.
I appreciate the fact that too, that they got together to discuss it because I had suggested, it had come up as a suggestion at the Planning Commission and it was not encouraged and I was disappointed in that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Abstain?
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Abstain. Thank you.
Thank you. This was obviously very convoluted. Staff did not hear any comments from joining property owners until pretty late. So if anyone sees a yellow zoning sign, please call that and we can give you the information and have these meetings beforehand. We really did not hear from anyone until the 11th hour and everybody scrambled at that point. So please feel free to call.
I was going to make a comment about this during commissioner comments, but Wayne, if we could in the future, when there's a zoning change sign put out, notify the adjoining property owners with a letter from the city notifying them of possible property zoning change. I don't know what the letter of the law states, but
The law does not require it. Good practice can be a couple 100 feet, 300 feet or so.
Right. It's going to be usually it's within, it varies across the state. State law is silent on a minimum, other than all the notification for the sign and announcement. So we can discuss a policy.
the writing on the signs are really hard to see and sometimes can be missed and whatnot. And I know that creates more drama, especially for us when we notify everybody. And I don't want us to be coming across that we're trying to pull one under
Right.
or pull one over on the citizens.
Why don't
Want to be
I work with
transparent.
planning and we come up with some sort of at least policy outline and I can get it to you or present it at a workshop.
I thought we had that. I thought we had
I
in
like
place
that
that we
idea.
sent a personalized letter out. From the
Only
city.
in times of what we believe to be contentious zoning changes or PUDs of that nature.
thought
But again,
we
it's
did
not.
too.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking
We-
about, we made a decision many years ago to do this.
To notify the people around that would be affected.
I think you
Do you
can.
know
I mean-
about when?
No, but there was a checklist and Kelly, I don't know if you remember anything about that,
It's been a while back.
that we also had to notify Hampton County and
Was that annexation?
Those are annexations when annexations were.
Okay,
by
that's right.
ordinance, then those notifications did go out.
But I think that's a good point, though. I
I
think
do
we should do
too.
Yeah.
something.
Just so that everybody's on the same, we're all neighbors and friends. And this incident here with the Shriners and Mr. Kim meeting together and could have been done a lot sooner in the process. And if people had known, and I just want us to move forward with transparency and learn a lesson.
Yep. We'll put something together and give it to the commission to let you know what our policy will be.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Are we thinking about the letters that were sent out when we did annexations?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he was talking about.
Okay. That finishes our unfinished business. We'll go to our new business. We have the first reading of ordinance 1099. Would you read the caption, please?
An ordinance of the City of Collegedale, Tennessee, revising certain provisions of Title 10 of the Municipal Code relating to animal control.
So sometime back, we revised our animal control ordinance and inadvertently deleted the bulk of it. So this puts it back.
How did we delete it?
I'm not sure. It was 8 to 10 years ago. And so this just puts it back. It's the ordinance that we sent out.
Do we have any minutes as to discussion? Was it voted on to be removed?
I believe it was a typographical error in the way that it was written.
So it's just housekeeping to put it back?
This is just housekeeping that's.
Well, and the reason why I ask is because there's a section on here about chickens in people's yards. And I know that this was an issue in Misty Valley. At one point, there was a neighbor, and the city's opinion was that it was allowed as long as the HOA did not.
That
Forbid it.
was a mistake that has been rectified or understanding improved. What the inspector thought was because the ordinance did not specifically say no chickens, that nothing could be done to address it, when in reality, because Misty Valley was zoned R1L, no agricultural activities could happen. So it was actually prohibited. So we've addressed that concern and then are fixing this animal control ordinance in addition.
So currently in R1L, it's prohibited.
Correct.
Okay.
So this is separate to that.
This is an addition.
Right,
It's
right.
not creating a new law that prohibits this activity.
Correct.
We already have zoning that prohibits it.
Correct. This is animals running at large and animal control type activities, that sort of thing.
That's the reason why subheading is animal control, not land use.
Correct.
Gotcha. Would that be the reason, would it be because we handed over things to Hamilton County, the Humane Society, to handle issues? Did we fall under Hamilton County's guidance?
I really think it was
Just
an error
An error, okay.
that was caught. And so we're just cleaning it up.
I'm sorry you ruled out roosters because they're nice to hear crow in the morning.
I have them. I hear them
A
every
little,
morning.
being a little country girl, I appreciate the rooster crowing in the morning.
I grew up in the country. I hate roosters.
Well, I can tell you, there's one in our neighborhood. And it's not on my property.
Good.
It runs the neighborhood.
I need to check that out because in my community, which is just right here behind the middle school, I cannot have a clothesline, which is the developers that put out. But we've had pigs, we have roosters, and we have alpacas.
So those
Or
would be
have been.
prohibited by zoning. If that happens, just let us know and Jeremy will have a conversation.
It's been a while, but the roosters are there. It don't bother me. After 20 years, that doesn't bother me.
So if we wanted to allow certain activities in R1, that would be a zoning change, nothing to do with this.
You would probably want to do it both places. For instance, when backyard chickens came up sometime back in Chattanooga, there was a separate ordinance that addressed it, minimum square footages, how far off property lines they had to be and how they had to be kept.
So this time, this is just, like Commissioner Baker said, housekeeping.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, any further comments? Do I hear a motion in a second?
Make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the first reading of ordinance 1099. Roll call.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Our next item is the first reading of ordinance 1100. Read the caption, please.
An ordinance of the City of Collegedale, Tennessee, regulating camping on property owned, operated, leased, or controlled by the city.
So this is just an ordinance that without permission, individuals aren't allowed to camp, for instance, at the Commons, at the Future Park, along the Greenway, et cetera. Now, if organizations such as Pathfinders or Boy Scouts wants to, they can gain permission from the city and do so. But this is to keep individuals from just setting up a tent on city property or within the right of way.
Would this impact people that put up campers in their backyard and people living in them?
No, ma'am. This just for city property.
And if there was ever to be a riot, protest, where people start setting up in private, in public right of way or in public parks, in theory, this would stop that. And kind of like what the state capitol did recently, what the legislature did recently with state property.
Yes, we've copied Athens and the state on this.
This is due to the homeless people under bridges. Is that the,
That would be prohibited under this ordinance, would be camping in those situations.
they could just tell you they're just moving on for tomorrow.
Would it,
That's
even
a-
though it's state property maybe?
That's ours.
The waterway?
Under
I'm just curious if
the
it,
water, now you're into a legal definition between navigable waterways and public right of way. But really the intent was for folks around the Greenway or the Duck Pond, that sort of thing.
It wasn't to remove the homeless underneath Wolf Teeter Bridge over here.
No, we've worked with them to clean up some things down there. A few
Yes.
have
Yeah.
migrated on to
Yeah.
other places.
That's nice.
Because I do know we have them in transit that come every year. They just stop by for a little while and go on to Florida.
They were not the catalyst of this. When we were working through that situation, that's when we became aware that we didn't have anything to regulate camping in our park
Okay.
system, essentially.
Could there be an opportunity for people who don't know this, who for some reason camp, and somebody approaches them to ask them for permit? Is there a possibility that the officers could have a camping permit thing in their car? They could go back and say, fill this out, and if they had their kids with them or something, or are you going to run everybody off and make them get a camping permit first? I guess that's what I'd like to see if someone's legitimately family oriented, down here waiting for something to happen and they camp overnight, that we would maybe be able to accommodate them even though we have this, by bringing something to them or having them.
The way that this was written, there was a focus on allowing groups such as Pathfinders or
Right. Yeah.
Boys and Girl Scouts.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
There was not an effort made to accommodate individuals who wanted to camp at the duck pond, as an example. We don't have the facilities in those areas for sanitary camping.
Right.
Any additional comments or questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second for ordinance 1100. Roll call.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay.
I've got a couple wording things. I'd just bring them by the office maybe.
Be fine.
I just have a question. It was mentioned about having a camper and someone living in it on your property. Don't we have an ordinance against that? That's what I thought. Because that was an issue here a while back with a camper in our city.
I don't think it's an
Good evening,
overnight.
ladies and gentlemen. Yes, that's prohibited unless zoning allows for that type of use. It would have to be zoned for like a trailer park or something. An R3 zoning designation would allow for that type of use, but in most cases, somebody might be just having some friends come to visit, but unfortunately, that's not allowable in the city for them to hook up to power and them actually live out. It's one thing to have it parked, but have it operational is not allowed.
So like if they come in for vacation, it's okay. Yeah.
Well, if they have like some friends come in from out of town, they would have to go to an RV park specifically designated for that type of use. They couldn't just pull in their driveway, plug into their power and just, like Cousin Eddie from vacation, something like that.
I
It's
think
not
there's one
allowed.
in my neighborhood.
What's
Okay.
that?
I said, I think there's one in my neighborhood as you come in.
Okay. Give me an address and we'll go check it out. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Our next item is approval of an updated zoning map.
Thank you. I usually come bearing this once a year, or actually I do. This is the updated zoning map that reflects any zoning changes that took place in the preceding year. And they're indicated on the map, or any changes to the city boundary, including Whistle Stop was added, and then its zoning MUTC was added to the map. So this reflects the changes, the cumulative changes, and becomes the official zoning map once it's approved annually. And like I said, it reflects the changes that you all have approved in the preceding year.
Through June 30.
Through, the map date is June 1st, so
Okay.
any of the things that we discussed tonight actually would be noted on here as a zoning amendment so that we can keep track of that and be able to update that.
Next year,
accordingly.
for next year.
We update it in real time, but as far as the official zoning map, that's certified once a year, and it's just simply a required process that it doesn't require an ordinance. It's just a voice vote to affirm this, and it did go through Planning Commission for review before it came here.
Move to approve.
Second.
Is it kept somewhere where the citizens can review it?
Yeah, once it is signed by the mayor, it is then we scan this as a PDF and then we post it on the website and then distribute it to city departments who would have a need for this. And the commissioners, we usually send out a PDF once of the scanned copy.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? Okay, we had a
Motion a second.
motion and second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Our next item is approval for sale of surplus vehicle.
This is the Codes Department Durango. We can't get parts for it, and so we would like to sell this vehicle and then move one of the Tahoes from the police department over for them to use.
So this is just for the sale of the Durango.
Correct.
Move to approve.
Second. And for the record, this is a very old Durango, not any of the new Durangos that we.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. It's a 2000 or 2001. And we can't get the parts
Right.
to fix it.
Just want, when you said Durango, I just want people to know.
Yes.
Because my hair stood up.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Our next item is approval of engineering services for sewer force main project.
Do you have this, Eric?
Good evening.
Hey,
So I'm before you this evening. As you know, we're moving forward with our force main project, and we previously contracted with Croy Engineering to design the project, and now we're moving into the construction phase. And they've offered two services to us for the construction phase. One is construction administration, which is basically reviewing all the submittals from the contractors, making sure all the materials that they're using meet the bid design, and then also if there's any discrepancies on if certain materials aren't available for demand or whatnot, they're able to go and use different materials. They would approve it. Also have monthly update meetings with us, go over progress, so on and so forth. And then the second service that they're offering is called RPR, where they provide a resident project representative, which is a basically full-time inspector to be able to inspect the day-to-day installation progress of the project. And all those services are based off an hourly rate. For the administration, it's based on our original contract, same rates. And then for this RPR, it's for $7 to $8 an hour, which is very reasonable for the talent that they're providing. And it's on an as-needed basis. So if for some reason there's certain stretches where we have staff that are able to do that, we can use our staff. We don't have to use the representative. Or if we have another project that's kicking off, like we've got sewer in Wellesley coming in, we've got sewer over on Tucker that's coming in, and then other maintenance issues that pop up, that means we can have them provide their person who knows about the project to step in and inspect when we can't. So basically helping out to make sure this project stays on task, is going the way it needs to be.
Is this part of the budgeted amount?
Yes, this should be able to fit in the original budget amount that we requested for.
So are you recommending both of these
Yes.
options?
And how long is this? All
So
the sewer, but
the contract
How
to
many
complete
feet?
the project is 240 days.
I mean, as far as feet or whatever you measure it by,
Go again?
is there footage that you're doing under? how many is
Yes, off the top of my head, it's 4,700 feet.
47 or 4,800.
Yeah,
it? About 5,000.
almost a
about
mile.
5,000.
A little less than a mile.
And some of these expenses, well, some of the force main expenses will be able to be covered by the COVID funding that we'll be receiving too.
Yes, from what we've heard,
The
the federal
ARP.
funding can hopefully go towards this project.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. No further discussion, I take it. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Our next item is approval for the airport MOU.
This is a memorandum of understanding that brought to you at the request of Jay Jolly. And he is working with a group called Crystal Air, who is a flight school at the Chattanooga Airport. They would like to set up a satellite facility at our airport. And eventually he would like to also provide a lease aircraft out at the airport as well. So this is a memorandum of understanding that essentially just says we'll work with him, and if we have space available, we'll rent it to him for those uses. We do not have a financial obligation tied with this.
Does this been reviewed by Sam?
Sam drafted it.
Okay.
Okay.
Sound like a win-win to me.
Move to approve.
Second.
Very good.
No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Our next item is the Little Debbie Park construction book.
So this is so that we can sign the construction book, which is essentially the project manual or contract for Little Debbie Park. We do have a commitment from the family's 501c3 that they will cover all the financial side of it. It's just that as we own the property and we'll own the park, they thought it was more appropriate for us to sign as owner rather than the 501c3. This also was reviewed by Sam and the commitment letter.
You said it was reviewed by Sam?
Correct.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Any city reports from the city manager?
So I'm going to ask Michelle to present the finance report.
Good evening. You should have the May finance report in front of you. We're 92% through the year, and our revenues are at 114%, which is, we're over by approximately $1.5 million. So that is good. That is great. And as far as expenditures go, we've spent about 95%. We will end the year slightly over, but our amendments will more than cover that. So we should be good. As far as the bank balances go, the only thing to take note of is we have tried to make things less complicated and more transparent. So we plan to close the contingency fund and the capital outlay fund bank accounts and just move it all into investment funds. So pretty much when you look at our bank balances, it will be our checking account, which that's our, cash flow. And then it'll be the investment fund, which will just be fund balance pretty much. And then of course we'll have sewer fund and airport fund investment as well.
So since they're in the same pot, basically.
Yes, yes.
Are you going to keep track of where they came from so that we know what monies went in there and how much from where? Or is it just going to be, here's what we got?
We will keep track. Pretty much, we're closing those two bank accounts. It's all general fund money. All of it is unrestricted. It would be considered fund balance by the auditors. So we have about 10 million in fund balance.
Okay.
So it's all general fund. It's all of our fund balance. It doesn't need to be, it will be.
So it doesn't matter where it came from? That's what you're telling me?
Sort of.
No,
It's all the general fund, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you said closing contingency and capital outlay accounts. Those were two separate accounts that we had open?
Yes.
Okay.
We had our checking account, which is the number at the top.
Right.
And then we had 3 accounts that all contained various amounts of our general fund balance. So just to make things just less complicated, we're going to just have one account that has our general fund balance. It'll just be more obvious.
The accounting's not changing or anything like that. It's
Nothing's
just,
changing.
it's easier to know how much we actually have.
Yes.
So it's not spread out.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I like simple. Simple's a good thing to me.
Yeah.
So I'm in favor of that. But it seems like there was a reason why it was there. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do something different, But if it's been there in 3 accounts for some time, it seemed like there was a reason for it to be there. And I'm not asking for any explanation right now, but that's just where I'm coming from. Simple is good.
Yeah, yeah.
But why was it there?
I think Ted separated it.
Yeah.
Who separated?
Didn't Ted
Yeah,
sep-
Ted had it separated. In his mind, the way he worked, he liked to have, certain accounts for what, in his mind, he wanted to spend that on. I think it's just easier, and Wayne agrees, if it's all in one account, yeah. Just the way
Gotcha.
mines work, it's different for
Gotcha.
everyone.
I like simple too.
Yeah, I do.
I have a question, but I'll come talk to you about it later,
Okay,
Keep it simple.
just so I understand.
okay.
Any further comments?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the financial report. Roll call.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Anything else from the city manager?
So tomorrow at 3 o'clock, the new traffic pattern for Talent Road up to the roundabout will come into play. So we've already shared it on the website and social media.
And they'll be painting the lines, I'm hoping by tomorrow.
That's what we've been told.
They weren't today when I drove up here.
They'll probably attempt to stripe them right now.
It looks like they were making a new pathway for the greenway.
Yes, they'll have to put in temporary pathways to keep the greenway open as they move into various stages.
Anything else?
That's it.
Commissioner White?
I just want to say that the celebration, freedom celebration, even though the weather was not as cooperative as we'd hoped, I really like the setup with the commons, how pretty it was with the lighting that the Chattanooga market did for us, interacting with people. The market seemed to do really well. And then the food trucks, having them all there in that little area was a really cool feature. Public Works did a great job. The police department did an awesome job speaking with different public works and police officers. They seemed to like how things flowed. Having our officers in bright green, as odd as that looked, Chief, the little floating green things, that the people joke about, not to put anybody on the spot, but the green made it y'all more approachable, more visible. And I really think that was a nice touch. Wouldn't mind seeing those more often being worn, maybe while they're on the greenway or on the weekends when we have high traffic on pedestrian traffic around. I think that was a really cool effect that y'all did. So thank you for your leadership on that. And then great to see that the airport's being utilized and trying to produce income and get more jet fuel sold and air fuel sold. So thank you, Chris, for your leadership on that. And we look forward to what the airport can do for us. So that's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Commissioner Garver?
Ditto, ditto, ditto. Great 4th. Everything went very, very, very well. I think our fireworks are the best anywhere around and always enjoy them. And we got home quickly afterwards, thanks to our wonderful organization, Chief. So appreciate all Eric does, but he always has things under control for us, so that's good. Thank you, everybody, for what they do for our city.
Commissioner Baker?
Like I say, ditto, 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 I guess. But I would like to say too that I had nothing but good, positive responses from the fireworks. And I really enjoyed the music, and a lot of people enjoyed the different genres of music, which I was glad to see. I want to give out a praise to our public works and to our police department. You could tell that they put in a lot, of course you too, Mr. Hines, and everyone else that was involved. I think I went above beyond Call of Duty. I really do. I think to me, it was a lot better than it has been in the past. And I like the past, but I think what y'all did it was excellent. And it was just, to me, it just flowed, And so I do appreciate you.
Vice Mayor?
It was a great job. I'll give the city that. I appreciate everything. It was a nice, cool evening, and a little rain kind of cooled it down a little bit. So the only thing I really miss, I hate to say this, I enjoy the vendors on this side of the thing as well. A lot of people were asking, where's the vendors? You know, and I would direct them over here. And when they would come back, they would kind of say, well, that was a long walk. So is there any, I don't know if we can have a split vendor row sitting on the green. We can talk about it at a workshop, but I did notice that some people did not feel like they wanted to walk that far.
We can look at it. I believe everyone thought that not having vendors on Appleton Pike was an improvement this year.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think so.
But we can look at other options.
I was thinking maybe the edge of the green off Appleton Pike, maybe. I don't know how hard it would be or what, but
Behind the plaza.
some people were getting my age and a little elderly more than me, but that's what I had heard. So thank you. They did run out of food. That's a great thing, isn't it? Yeah, somebody told me they still had popcorn up there, and I went to get a bag of it. They said it's been gone for an hour.
They did the same thing to me, and I received the feedback when I got home about it.
Yeah.
I think one thing I learned during this celebration was the very importance of us working on additional parking, because we're not going to have that field probably next year at this time. And I think that should be one of our crucial elements if we're going to still try to accommodate our community like we do. And I think that's one of the things we're really known for. So I think parking needs to start moving up our ladder, I think, of important issues for the future. Sorry.
Well, for the first time in a long time, I missed it. The dentist moved my appointment up, and I had a big jaw, and I didn't feel like listening to fireworks or music. But I do have something I wish we would, when we do discuss this, I wish we would discuss the charging for parking. I agree with the Vice Mayor. I have a little bit of hard time. I know that's a fundraiser for our different organizations, but I think we're the only one in the area for the fireworks that do charge, and I'd like for us to be friendly.
Okay. We can certainly look into that.
While it's fresh on our minds, should we put this on a workshop more recent, or like in the next workshop to discuss? Would that be okay?
Okay, are we going to put into possibly having it on the 4th next year? Because that would need to be discussed.
Or a different day, but
Okay.
that needs to come up as well. That was
Yeah.
the only feedback I received was questioning the Thursday.
Yeah,
With the 4th being on Monday next week, we can discuss what would be best for the community.
I received a few phone calls too about complaining that it was so early.
Mhm.
And in fact, I had someone ask me, or I've received phone calls on Saturday wanting to know when we were going to have them. And I said, we've already had the fireworks, and they were surprised, and they live here in town, but they hadn't heard them. Nothing else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned.
All right.